It's been a big week. Over at the $1 Million Pool, we're continuing with our pool plumbing and then forming up the pool shell. Also, phase 2, another addition to the home. We're out there digging our grade beams for another pretty crazy foundation. This one's gonna be about almost 20 feet tall, not quite 30 feet tall like the $1 Million Pool. At the Zilker Park Jewel, demo is basically all done. Things are looking really, really good over there. We are flying. Now we have to do some administrative stuff, get ready to pour foundation. One of our biggest, baddest remodels and additions ever, Project X on the lake. Me and Derek went out, we took final photos. This job is a stunner. I cannot wait to get it on the website. And then finally, at our Lake Travis Overlook, we've done all of our MEP roughs. We are getting drywall up, and that means we're moving on to finish out, and that is always exciting over here at Revent Builds. Let's jump right in. At the $1 Million Pool, all of the walls of our pool shell are largely framed up. We have our plywood forms up with our steel rebar in, and now comes the time where we're getting all the plumbing in. So this plumbing is gonna go inside of our pool walls. So we run plumbing for multiple different things. We're running PVC for conduits for all of our pool lights. For anything electronic in the pool needs to be a PVC pipe that's all waterproof so that no water can get in there. And then obviously there's tons of different jets, inlets, outlets. We have some going to the pool, some going to the equipment, just so everything can recirculate really well. That's always like a big maze, right? And we want to be careful. We don't want to put too much pipes in one given area because we don't want any air gaps in what's called the gunite, which is basically just the concrete that gets shot to make up the shell of our pool. Once we get that gunite poured, it's gonna be awesome and you're gonna see the structure of the pool. I call this the job that keeps on giving. This is ultimately gonna be a 3-phase project. We've officially started on phase 2, which is about a 1,200 square foot addition to the lower level. The $1 Million Pool sits on a foundation that's roughly 30 feet tall because we're getting it up to the main level, which is actually the 2nd story because there's kind of a lower basement level below that. This phase 2 addition is just at that lower level. So we're about 20 feet up from the ground. So still a pretty freaking massive foundation. But in comparison, this is gonna be a cakewalk to the $1 Million Pool foundation. So as you can see in video, this is kind of crazy. There's a big elevation change from up close to the house to kind of down where the furthest part of the addition pokes out. So it looks like the guys are just building like a dig-dug maze through the ground. What they're doing is they're digging out our grade beams. That's the area in the foundation where every foundation has a cap that's going to be a lot more shallow than these grade beams. The grade beams is basically just a trench that a bunch of rebar and concrete goes into. That's gonna actually make up the footers and the stability of what holds up this foundation. So there's always a grade beam around the entire perimeter, and then you hatch in different paths in that grid mark pattern to make up the grade beam pattern, depth, width, height, all of that our structural engineer specs. So normally for a regular foundation, we usually estimate 7 to 10, maybe 14 days of excavation before you actually start pouring your foundation. For something like this, it's probably 3 to 4 weeks of just excavating, getting all the grade beams right, lining everything out. This is really a large foundation. And again, in comparison to the pool, it's not quite as big, but as far as a normal foundation goes, that would normally be 2 to 4 feet out of the ground. This is 20 feet, right? So it's 4 to 5 times bigger than any normal foundation, and we are not taking that lightly. The Zilker Park Jewel, one of my favorite neighborhoods. I love working on these older homes. It's just so tricky and technical and fun, and the aesthetic is just something I love. Pedro and the boys absolutely crushed demo. They demoed out the entire interior down to the studs. Now, we are testing out a new foundation contractor. Robert with Ram Concrete is an awesome dude. He gives really detailed bids. He definitely knows what he's doing. But since we are tapped out over at the $1 Million Pool, Victor and the crew are completely covered up for probably the next 6 to 12 months. So, bringing in a new guy, always a little bit tricky, but I think on the Zilker Park Jewel, this is great because it's 2 additions, yes, but it's a pretty low lift as far as foundation goes. So if he doesn't kick ass on this, he's definitely not getting any work from us, but he's off to a great start. And now the next steps is they set their wooden forms up. And a form just means a shape. It forms the shape of the foundations. And then the next step in that process is we have to get a form survey from the survey company, which means they're simply coming out, verifying our approved permit plans to what we did on site and making sure that our foundation conforms to those plans. I have no doubt that will be fine. Again, it's fairly straightforward, so a lot of things are working in tandem. Another thing that we're having to do is we're removing every interior wall in the whole house, upstairs and downstairs. We have to put in new concrete footers and piers at multiple different locations. This house, since it's older, this is really common. It's nice, thick, real hardwood floors, but there's no subfloor. So we just made the call to rip up all the existing flooring to A, give our concrete contractors access to put in those new footers and piers, but B, to allow us to put in a new subfloor so we'll have a beautiful, stable base for when we put on the final flooring. Project X on the lake. This was a massive remodel and addition in the multiple millions. We're not even allowed to say the price, but our clients were so gracious enough to allow us to do photos. These are very high profile clients in a very high profile neighborhood in a very high profile house. We can't really say who they are or the exact location, but we can share these absolutely exquisite photos with y'all. This is a project that is largely a kind of Victorian aesthetic on the outside, which you know I love from doing the modern Victorian. But the interior is just so stellar. There's so many layers of crown molding and wood wainscoting and cabinetry with folding doors, and we have hidden TVs and massive fireplaces and just whimsical staircases. We have decks overlooking a canal right on the lake. It is just such a beautiful home. Derek and I went in, we took a full day. We have like probably 100 different photos and we just captured the beauty of this project. This is gonna be a stellar project that will be front and center on the website. They are 2 of the most amazing clients we have. They are referring us to all their family and friends. It just could not be a better situation. The Overlook on Lake Travis, yet again, another amazing estate. This is 5 different lots that have been put together in one property with 3 separate structures. Massive project, awesome clients, another banger that we love here at Revent. Whenever we're putting in our rough mechanicals, which is HVAC, plumbing, electric, there is always a lot of details and stuff to wade through and box locations and specs and valves, and it can move kind of slow. It's a process that is always tough to get through. It's inspection heavy, it's technical heavy, because if you make a mistake early on and then you cover it up later, it's a lot more costly to fix it later on. So we triple check and make sure that everything's right. We've completed pretty much everything in the rough phase, but we've gotten everything in and we have officially started drywall. Now, this is very important because in our payment structure, we take a big deposit up front, but then the next time we get paid is once we get drywall up and we pass what's called a wallboard inspection. We are just flying to now get the drywall up, pass that inspection, and then we'll get a finish out draw, and then we can start on all the pretty stuff, and we cannot wait for that. A, because it's showing progress moving along, but when the pretty stuff goes in, that's really where the project gets fun again. As always, I appreciate y'all so much for watching. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Starting next week, we're gonna be doing 2 videos a week. We have a bunch of amazing stuff coming up that you won't wanna miss. I'll see you next week for episode 19.